Sandra Bullock isn't only a star. She's living proof of what it means to rise, fall, and rise again. We remember Annie Porter fighting for every breath on that runaway bus. We remember Leanne Tohey opening her home and her heart to a boy who needed both. Beyond the screen, she's a fiercely devoted mom, a producer who steered her own career, and a woman whose strength carried her through betrayal, fear, and losses that could flatten anyone. Her smile once lit red carpets around the world. Her presence warmed every frame. Her name became shorthand for authenticity and grit. Sandra Bullock is not just an artist. She's a survivor. Dignity unbent, a flame tempered by storms. For more than 3 decades, she stood at the fault line between triumph and tragedy, turning private pain into indelible art. And now we step into that blazing symphony of a life to face the most devastating storm she's weathered at age 61. Before we begin, tap like as a small tribute to an extraordinary talent. It's wrenching to realize that the first cracks in her life didn't come from danger or poverty, but from a child's raw loneliness, feeling out of place even while the world moved beneath her feet. On July 26, 1964 in Arlington, Virginia, Sandra Annette Bullock was born to Helga Meyer, a German opera singer whose voice filled Europe's grand halls, and John Bullock, an American vocal coach and soldier, disciplined and proud. From the start, her days weren't carefree. They were shaped by expectation. Backstage in Europe, among costumes and arias, obeying strict rehearsal rhythms while other kids played outside. By age 5, she was already under stage lights. Her small voice folded into children's choirs singing Mozart Messe. By age 10, she lived in more German and Austrian cities than most American classmates would ever see. Each move tearing her from new friends and reminding her that she had no roots, no single place to be a kid. When the family returned to the United States in 1976, the ache sharpened. Classmates teased her funny clothes from Germany. An accent clung to every word. The hallways echoed, not with her, but at her. What should have been belonging became years of quiet humiliation, carving deep seams of isolation. Later, she would say that standing alone at the edge of the room taught her to spot the other forgotten faces, to feel pain others missed, and that empathy became the compass for her life and her work. German stayed the language of comfort. English became the language of survival. 2 identities took at once. Never fully one, never fully the other. Her life felt like a split screen. Germany on one side, America on the other. In the middle, a young girl silenced by sadness, shadowed by both. But those wounds didn't break her. They hardened into strength. Loneliness pressed itself into empathy. Constant change trained her to adapt. Rejection taught her to be real. The one thing Hollywood can't fake, but always recognizes when it burns on screen. The little girl who once hushed her own voice to hide her difference would one day command the world with it. The outsider mocked for not belonging would grow into a woman who made millions feel seen, building a bridge from the margins to the center with courage, craft, and grace. Sandra Bullock didn't grow up poor. Music, discipline, and 2 steady parents shaped her childhood. But in 1986, she walked away from East Carolina University only a few credits shy of a drama degree, and everything changed. She could have stayed and chosen safety. Instead, she chose New York, the stage, the dream, the improbable chance. That choice had a price. The city is merciless to a young woman with no famous name, no connections, no net. The daughter of a voice coach and an opera singer turned invisible overnight. Anonymous, broke, struggling to breathe. She worked nights, bartender, waitress, coat checker, trudging home with blistered feet to a tiny apartment that felt colder in winter than the sidewalk. Dinner was often instant noodles and bitter coffee, her body running on fumes and sheer will. It wasn't that her family wouldn't help, it's that she refused to lean. She wanted to prove she could carve her path through a business that chews people up. She learned more from the no's than she ever did from the yeses. Born from nights rehearsing in the dark while the city slept. The late 1980s gave her only shadows. Hangman Religion Inc. who shot. They came and went without a ripple. No one noticed. No one cared. The posters faded. The reels gathered dust. She carried them like scars, reminders of how fragile dreams are. Still, she didn't fold. Every rejection became fuel. Every silence tightened her resolve. Those failures, she admitted, gave me hunger. A fire that kept her standing when others would have fallen. Then 1993 brought Demolition Man. Not a lead, but sharing scenes with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes finally put her in the frame. A spark, And in 1994, lightning struck. Speed wasn't written for her. Annie Porter had circled desks for bigger names, Halle Berry among them. Sandra wasn't on the list. She walked into the audition with a folding chair and a paper plate for a steering wheel. Raw, vulnerable, real. Her chemistry with Keanu Reeves was undeniable, electric. The studio couldn't look away. Speed exploded at the box office. $350 million worldwide on a modest budget. And it remade her life overnight. The young woman who'd scrubbed tables and lived on ramen became Hollywood's newest star. In 1995, While You Were Sleeping proved it wasn't a fluke. She conquered comedy with the same grace she'd brought to action. From a waitress with blistered hands to America's sweetheart in under a decade, Sandra Bullock didn't just survive. She forged resilience from rejection, turned obscurity into stardom, and transformed self-chosen hardship into the fire that powered an extraordinary career. Her path proves triumph isn't where you start. It's how much you're willing to endure for what you believe. What came next wasn't just fame, it was power. While the world still called her America's sweetheart, Sandra quietly launched for his films, staking her claim as a producer so she wouldn't be a passenger in her own story. A bold studio deal followed. Hope Floats, Miss Condiality, 2 Weeks' Notice, movies that packed theaters and carried her fingerprints as both a producer and a star. She stretched into television, too. Shepherding the long-running sitcom George Lopez, proof her vision could reach from multiplexes to living rooms. Hollywood, though, tests every crown. Returning for Speed 2, Cruise Control, without Keanu Reeves, she watched the critics shred it while audiences stayed away. The budget ballooned, the story sank, and Sandra, the face on the poster, got dragged down with it. She later quipped, "I think only 5 people like that movie." Behind the joke was the sting, because she agreed to the sequel in exchange for the chance to make Hope Floats, a film she believed in completely. That's her way. Risk failure, even ridicule, to tell the stories that matter. Resilience repaid her. After years of climbing, falling, and climbing again, she stood on the academic award stage holding the Oscar for The Blind Side. Her fierce compassion into Leon Twohy, and the world felt it. The moment should have been unalloyed joy, the crown jewel of a career, but it arrived wrapped in private heartbreak. Behind the smile, her marriage to Jesse James was buckling under the weight of betrayal. 10 days separated the highest professional honor from the deepest personal devastation. Even in that storm, she shielded her newly adopted son, Louis, from the chaos drawn by the same strength that had carried her through every rejection. That Oscar didn't just honor a performance. It honored a woman who refused to let pain define her. Then came Gravity, a film that left audiences breathless. Alone on screen for most of the movie, she carried an entire universe, and audiences responded, over $700 million worldwide. The film didn't just break records, it smashed ceilings. With one of Hollywood's most lucrative deals, she proved the outsider, once mocked for an accent and odd clothes, had become a master negotiator, someone who could bend the system to her will. And she kept evolving. When streaming reshaped the industry, Sandra advanced. Bird Box became a global moment as millions watched the mother protect children in a blind world. The Unforgivable revealed a harsher, rawer edge, and The Lost City showed she could still command box office decades after Speed. Through every phase ran the same current: resilience forged in hardship, daring choices, and an unshakable refusal to be boxed in. Her ascent was never just about applause. It was about reclaimed power, earned dignity, and unbroken faith. The same young woman who scrubbed tables and stretched instant noodles into dinner would one day face studio chiefs and set her terms. $20 million paychecks, profit shares worth tens of millions, and a real estate portfolio spanning coasts. Sandra Bullock's journey isn't just a career arc. It's an anthem. Proof that triumph isn't handed to you in comfort, but hammered into being through hunger, rejection, and relentless work. From ramen to riches, from obscurity to one of the most bankable names on earth, her story shows how the fire of resilience can turn the coldest winter into a crown. But the brightest spotlight casts the darkest shadows. And she was about to learn how quickly triumph turns to tragedy. Just 5 years earlier, in July 2005, she'd walked down the aisle with Jesse James in a sunlit Santa Barbara ceremony, believing she'd found a missing piece. For years, they blended worlds. Her stardom, his life as a builder and father, and Sandra poured herself into the dream of a complete family. They even began the adoption process together, preparing to welcome a child with hope. By early 2010, everything seemed aligned. Love, family,